This happened a week ago. I'm Mark, 35, a geologist. I was excited to explore the Appalachian caves for my documentary. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I had no idea what awaited us. We rented a cabin deep in the woods. The trees were tall, and the air felt thick. I remember how quiet it was, that kind of silence that feels like something is watching you. I focused on my work. The caves, the formations, the minerals. But I can't stop thinking about what we found, or what we didn't find. On our first night, I set up the camera gear to look over the day's footage. I was hoping to capture some beauty. While I replayed the video, I noticed strange markings on the walls. They looked familiar, but I couldn't place them. They seemed to pulse in the dim light. I called out to my teammates, but they shrugged it off. A chill ran down my spine. Around midnight, I thought I heard whispers like distant voices. I glanced around the dark cabin, heart racing. I hit the record button but couldn't hear it again. I thought maybe I was imagining things, but I insisted on trying to capture it. Each time I stopped the recorder, the whispers stopped. It was odd. Later that night, I felt uneasy. The walls felt too close, and I tried to sleep. I woke up in a cold sweat. One of my colleagues was mumbling about shadows. The temperature dropped as I crept out to check on them. The next day, we headed into the caves. The deeper we went, the more I felt something behind us. My friends joked about the dark, but it felt forced. The silence grew louder. Shadows danced at the edges of my vision, taunting me. One of them stumbled and said they saw a figure. I said it was a trick of the light, but even as I said that, something felt wrong. I tried to understand it, but couldn't. Maybe it was nothing. Or maybe the caves were alive in ways we didn't understand. In a side chamber, we found old equipment, leftover gear from explorers who had vanished. It felt wrong to think about. I felt sick as we went further in. Every turn felt like it could be our last. When we decided to leave, the air was heavy. I looked back at the cave entrance. Was it hiding something? Or were we meant to leave those shadows alone? I can't shake the feeling that we weren't alone in there, like something was watching us. I think about it every day. What was in those dark passageways? What did we really find? I hope I never have to return. The morning after our cave expedition, the haunting moments replayed in my mind. I sat on the cabin porch nursing a hot cup of coffee. My team was still asleep. The quiet of the woods seemed to close in around me. I tried to shake the uneasy thoughts, but they lingered like fog. After a while, I decided to head back to the cave entrance. I had to confront what we discovered. I grabbed my camera. Maybe I could capture something that explained it all. As I walked, the familiar path felt foreign, as if it were alive and shifting. I met the cave entrance, and a wave of dread washed over me. As I stepped inside, the temperature dropped immediately. My breath formed small clouds in front of me. I switched on the flashlight, illuminating the damp, rugged walls. I hesitated, recalling the strange markings we had seen. The urge to turn back was strong, but I needed answers. I followed the path we had taken deeper into the shadows. Each step felt heavier. The stillness was deafening, and I swore I heard whispers again, faint and far away. I paused, holding my breath. The sound died. I wiped my sweaty palms on my pants and pressed on. When I reached the side chamber, my pulse quickened. I aimed my camera at the equipment we found, hoping to collect clues for my documentary. But as I zoomed in, I noticed something new. A set of footprints in the dust. My heart raced. They were fresh. I scanned the room again, anxiety prickling my skin. Had someone else been here recently? I needed to get back, to warn my team, but instinct pushed me forward. I needed to know who or what had left those prints. Just beyond the chamber, I entered a narrower tunnel. The walls felt closer, the darkness thicker. I turned a corner and stumbled. My foot caught on a rusted piece of equipment. I steadied myself against the wall, kicking it aside. That's when I saw it. A glint. Something shiny reflecting in my flashlight. I knelt to examine it. It was a necklace, old and covered in dirt, but unmistakable. It belonged to one of the missing explorers. A chill crept up my spine. Suddenly, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing behind me. My blood ran cold. I turned, half expecting to see one of my teammates, but there was nothing. Just darkness. I felt a looming presence, as if something was right at my back. Panicking, I rushed back towards the exit. But the cave felt different now. The shadows shifted unnervingly, as if they were alive, swirling and closing in around me. I stumbled, the narrow passage blocking my way like a threat. The whispers grew louder. Then everything went dark. My flashlight flickered and died. For a moment I was frozen, surrounded by deep, suffocating silence. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. I was utterly alone. That's when the whispers returned, clearer this time, and I realized I wasn't meant to be here alone. I held my breath, listening. The whispers danced around me, wrapping me in a shroud of dread. They were close, too close. Panic gripped my throat. I fumbled for my phone, praying the battery was alive enough to emit some light. With trembling hands, I switched on the screen. A weak glow broke through the pitch black. I breathed a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. The shadows shifted, flickering the moment my light touched the walls. There they were, symbols I hadn't noticed before, etched into the stone like some forgotten language. They seemed to pulse in rhythm with the whispers. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to collect my thoughts. What had I stumbled into? It was almost as if the cave had a heartbeat. The whispers now sounded like a chorus, chanting phrases I couldn't decipher. Just as I was about to turn and flee, something caught my eye at the far end of the tunnel. A figure stood there, half-shadowed, half-lit by my dim phone screen. My breath caught in my chest. It was tall, too tall for a human, and the outline was wrong. Elongated limbs and a head that didn't quite finish forming. "Who's there?" I croaked, my voice shaky and small. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it moved closer, gliding along the wall with a strange fluidity. I turned and bolted down the narrow passage, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I could hear it behind me, heavier than footsteps, almost a dragging sound that sent chills down my spine. "Help!" I screamed, desperation leaking into my voice. "I need help!" The dark tunnel seemed endless, twisting in ways I didn't remember. The walls were closing in, trying to suffocate me. My light flickered again, dimming further as I rounded a corner, gasping. Just ahead I saw something that made my heart stop. It was a large opening, a cavernous space lit by some unnatural glow. As I stumbled into it, I caught sight of artifacts, pieces of gear and belongings scattered everywhere. Old harnesses, torn jackets, and more necklaces. The same kind I had found. I felt nausea rise in my throat. It was clear that others had come here and they hadn't left. I could almost hear their echoes in the whispers, pleading, warning. A chill raced over me. Just then the dragging sound halted, and silence enveloped the cavern. My phone's light flickered one last time before it went out completely, plunging me back into darkness. Heart racing, I searched for anything, an exit, a sign, something. That's when I felt it. A cold breeze rushed past me and I turned, heart thundering in my chest. The figure was there again, closer now, almost within reach. I caught just a glimpse of its face, void-like eyes staring through me, before it let out a sound that made my soul quiver. I finally let instinct take over. I dashed to the opposite side of the cave, desperate to find a way out. Just then, something glimmered on the ground, catching my attention. It was another necklace. Not just any necklace, a matching piece to the one I'd previously found. As I picked it up, the whispers crescendoed into a shrill wail. I couldn't ignore the feeling, the sinking realization. I had to leave. But as I turned to run, I found the path behind me had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. Fear clawed at my insides as I screamed into the void. "What do you want from me?" The silence felt heavy. I was trapped, alone in this suffocating abyss with only the echoes of the whispers around me. I clutched the necklace tightly, its cool surface grounding me for a moment. I had to think. The last thing I wanted was to give in to panic and become another lost soul in this cave. Just then the whispers shifted. They were softer now, more like a lullaby, as though something was trying to soothe me. I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to succumb to their pull. I had to keep moving. I lifted my foot and stepped forward into the dark, feeling around for any wall or surface that could guide me. There was something off about the air. It felt thicker as I stepped deeper into the cave, almost alive. I stumbled yet again, the uneven ground testing my balance. A sudden chill gripped me, and goosebumps erupted across my skin. I felt an instinctual urge to look back but fought it. I knew whatever had been following me was still there, lurking. Then it hit me. The necklace. Could it be what the whispers wanted? Was it somehow significant? I opened my eyes and glanced down at the shimmer between my fingers. The symbols on it appeared strangely familiar but blurred. Slowly, I raised it in front of me, hoping that the glow would ward off whatever was coming. "Get away from me," I cried, my fear tipping into anger. It sounded hollow in the vastness of the cave. That's when I felt it again, a cold rush, this time wrapping around my arm like a claw. I stumbled backward, almost losing my footing. Panic flooded me, and I swung the necklace in front of me. I never thought I would be brandishing an object like a weapon in a place like this. "Let me go." Suddenly a flash erupted in the darkness. I squinted, trying to see. To my shock, the symbols on the walls illuminated themselves, glowing in response to the necklace. They pulsed in sync with the whispers, revealing figures entwined in intricate patterns. I knew I had seen those shapes before, but couldn't recall where. My heart raced as I took a step closer, drawn by an inexplicable force. The whispers climbed in pitch, forming a phrase I could almost decipher. "Return what's lost." The words crashed into my mind like an echo. I realized in that moment it wasn't about fleeing. I had something that didn't belong to me. I had to return the necklace, to whatever spirit or entity was waiting. But to whom? I turned again and saw a dim outline emerge from the shadows, more defined now. It was the figure, towering and menacing. A glimmer of recognition broke through my fear. I realized it was wearing fragments of the very necklaces I had found. Woven into its being, I took a breath, the feeling of dread mingling with resolve. "I'll return it, I promise," I cried, raising the necklace as an offering, my voice steadying. But as I held it out, the figure lunged forward. I felt the air shift. Everything teetered on the edge. The necklace burned in my palm, and suddenly a surge of energy coursed through me. I couldn't tell what was happening, but my instincts screamed that I had crossed a line. "Don't take me," I shouted, feeling a tension build. The darkness surged all at once, and I realized my body was no longer my own. Then everything went dark. I found myself back in the cave, but everything had changed. The darkness felt alive, swirling and shifting like shadows with minds of their own. Disoriented, I took a shaky breath, trying to calm my racing heart. Where had that figure gone? I could still feel the weight of its presence, heavy and suffocating. I blinked rapidly, struggling to adjust to the dim surroundings. There were no longer just whispers, but echoes of laughter that sent chills down my spine. I pressed against the cave wall, my hands searching for stability. The necklace was still clutched tightly in my palm, now warm and pulsing with a strange energy that made my skin tingle. That was when I noticed it. Not far from where I stood, a faint light flickered. It danced like a candle flame, tantalizing in the dark. Drawn to it, I took cautious steps forward, almost feeling like I was being pulled against my will. As I drew nearer, the laughter faded, replaced by a different sound. It was a low, mournful wail, echoing through the cavern, reverberating through my bones. My heart dropped further. I glanced behind me nervously. The thought of being followed gnawed at me once again. I hesitated at the edge of the light. In its glow, I saw something on the ground. Another necklace, identical to mine, except this one lay broken. The chains were scattered, glinting faintly. Instinctively, I reached out to touch it, thinking that somehow it could provide answers. Suddenly, I felt a sharp tug at the necklace around my neck, as if it wanted to break free. The bright light intensified, and in its glow, I saw shadows coalesce into a figure, a woman, ethereal and sorrowful, her eyes filled with an ancient weariness. "Help me," she whispered, the same echoing timbre I had heard earlier. "You must return what is taken." "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" She raised a hand pointing toward the broken necklace on the ground. "This is a part of us. Everything is connected. You must mend the bonds." Before she could finish, the shadows around her twisted violently. Her figure dissolved back into the dark, a fleeting glimpse of desperation. I felt my chest tighten. Another piece of the puzzle was just out of reach. The cave began to tremble. Pebbles rained down from above, and the echoes grew louder, as though the walls themselves were alive and furious. I had to make a decision. I could either try to escape or search for the truth hidden within this chaotic realm. The ground beneath me shuddered again, and a voice shouted from the depths, "Return it now!" Instinctively, I stumbled backward, gripping the necklace tighter. But instead of fleeing, an unexpected surge of courage surged through me. I had to confront whatever demon or spirit was enacting this chaos. In that moment, under the pulsating light, I made a vow to find a way to heal whatever had been broken. I would return what was lost, even if it led me deeper into the shadows. Then, as the ground trembled once more, a pathway split open in front of me, revealing a jagged tunnel. I hesitated, heart pounding in my throat. With one last deep breath, I stepped forward, plunging into the unknown with the necklace as my only guide. The tunnel felt like it was alive. Every step I took echoed against walls that seemed to pulse. The air was thick with moisture, and my breath came out in short, visible puffs. I grasped the necklace, feeling its heat seep into my skin. It was comforting, but I could sense the mounting tension around me. The flickering light from before began to dance ahead, drawing me further into the darkness. I came around a bend and stumbled into a larger chamber. The walls were adorned with strange symbols etched into the stone, their meanings hidden from me. My immediate instinct was to touch one, but a voice, low and sorrowful, stopped me. "Do not disturb their slumber," it warned. I whirled around, searching for the source. Suddenly the shadows shifted again, forming a figure that mirrored the woman I had seen before. This one was taller and wore a cloak that seemed to ripple like smoke. "You are not ready to face the truth," it said, its voice a haunting melody. "Why is this happening?" I demanded, my fear boiling into frustration. "What do you want from me?" The figure pointed toward a distant glow. "The heart of the cave holds the answers, but beware, not all who enter return." The warning hung in the air, heavy and ominous. I felt a chill creeping down my spine. Part of me wanted to turn back, but the necklace pulsed with urgency, urging me forward. I took a deep breath and stepped closer to the glow. As I neared, I spotted a small pool of water, shimmering under the ethereal light. The surface was crystal clear, unlike anything I had ever seen. I knelt beside it, the tranquil beauty drawing me in despite the shadows lurking around the edges. That was when I saw it, a reflection not just of my own face, but of the woman from earlier. Her expression was filled with pain, and she seemed to be reaching out, trapped behind an invisible barrier. "You must complete the cycle," her voice called from within the water, merging with the echoes around me. "What cycle?" I whispered, bewildered. I felt the weight of her gaze, urging me to understand. A sudden rush of movement caught my eye. From the corner of the chamber, dark forms swirled, approaching like a storm. I squinted, and my heart dropped as I recognized them. The broken chains I had seen earlier, possessed by shadows, snaking toward me. "Return what is lost," they hissed, whipping through the air with a menacing speed. I pressed my back against the pool, heart racing. There had to be a way to appease them. Just then, the necklace around my neck began to pulse wildly, filling the room with a brilliant light. The chains hesitated, drawn back by the glow. "Please," I shouted, feeling desperate. "What do I need to do?" The woman's reflection shimmered like a mirage. "Take your bond, mend what was broken," she implored. "You hold the key." The shadows coiled closer and panic surged within me. I reached down and unfastened my necklace, holding it out toward the dark swirl. The chains paused, hovering as if considering my offer. That's when everything changed. The reflection shattered, sending waves through the water, and the ground beneath me trembled violently. I braced myself as chaos unfolded, unable to comprehend what would happen next. Then in a sudden surge, the chains lunged forward and knocked the necklace from my hand. Before I could react, a sharp pain pierced my palm as the shadows enveloped the room, and everything went dark. I woke with a jolt, gasping for air. Darkness pressed down on me, thick and suffocating. I felt the cold stone under my fingers, the dampness seeping into my skin. My heart raced, pounding in my chest like a drum. The shadows still whispered around me, curdling with anticipation. "Are you alive?" A low voice cooed softly. I shot up, nearly losing my balance, and squinted into the darkness. I saw a pair of glowing eyes watching me from a distance. "Who are you?" I croaked, my throat dry and raw. The eyes narrowed, and then the figure stepped forward, materializing from the inky blackness. It was another shadow person, but different. This one had a more tangible form, like a human, but its edges blurred and shimmered. "I am a guide, but not by choice," it admitted, a hint of sorrow lacing its tone. "Guide me where?" I asked, my instincts screaming to flee. "To the truth," it replied, motioning its hand as if inviting me closer. "But you must first understand your past." Confusion washed over me. My past? I didn't remember anything significant that could relate to this place. The figure took another step forward, closer to the eerie light emanating from somewhere above. "Follow me," it said, turning and gliding away. I hesitated. The glowing eyes from before were likely still lurking, and I was beyond frightened now. But I also needed answers, for myself and for the mysterious woman trapped in that reflection. Steeling my resolve, I followed the specter into the oppressive darkness. The path twisted and turned, opening into smaller chambers that were just as unsettling as the first. Each space was littered with remnants of what once might have been, fragments of pottery, rusted tools, and inscriptions that looked like a lost language. "What happened here?" I asked. But the shadow only glanced back, its eyes glinting with an unreadable expression. "Tragedy," it whispered, echoing through the rock. "Loss can tie shadows to places like this, and those who tread too deep cannot return." The words settled heavy in my mind. I thought of the chain I had seen, the broken bonds. "Is that what happened to the woman?" I asked desperately. "Is she lost?" "Yes," the guide said, its voice low. "She embodies the cycle you must complete. Without mending what was broken, her spirit remains tangled in the chains of despair." We reached a large chamber, and the air grew thick with a strange energy. I felt the necklace's warmth return, almost like a heartbeat. I glanced around, searching for something, anything, that might help me understand how to mend that cycle. That's when I caught a flicker from the corner of my eye. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and atop it lay something gleaming, a silver chain. It twisted in on itself, creating a loop, as if beckoning. "Kneel," the figure commanded, its face becoming more ethereal. "What will happen if I do?" I asked, uncertainty gnawing at my gut. "Only then can the truth unfold," it replied, the urgency in its voice unmistakable. Taking a deep breath, I knelt before the pedestal. The chain glimmered in the low light. I felt the shadows rush around me, pulsating with tension. The atmosphere became charged, like a storm ready to break. As I reached out toward the chain, that same cold dread crept back in. And then, the earth rumbled, hinting that something was about to change again. I felt the chain's cool surface brush against my fingers, and a jolt of energy surged through me. The moment I touched it, a deafening crack echoed in the chamber, splitting the air. The shadows seemed to swirl violently around me, and I stumbled backward, dropping the chain. In that instant, the guide's form flickered as though a deep uncertainty had washed over it. "No!" it cried, reaching toward me. Before I could react, a figure erupted from the shadows behind the pedestal. It was a woman, her features obscured, but I sensed an overwhelming sorrow radiating from her. She reached out to me, her eyes wide and pleading. "Help me," she cried, her voice a chilling whisper that slithered through the darkness. "You must choose." I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. The guide had warned me about mending what was broken, but this was beyond comprehension. I looked back at the chain, its promise of truth now tainted with danger. "Choose what?" I shouted, panic slicing through my words. The shadow person stepped forward, its presence somehow at once comforting and ominous. "You must bind the cycle, but what will you sacrifice to free her?" The woman's gaze locked onto mine, desperation etched in every line of her face. "You can't let me stay here," she urged, her voice cracking. "I am bound, and you hold the key." I felt the necklace around my neck heat with intensity, as if in response to her plea. My heart raced. I had no idea what sacrifices were expected of me, but one thing was clear. I was on the brink of a choice far greater than myself. "Why can't you just leave?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the overwhelming dread. "I cannot break the chains alone," she explained, her fingers clawing at the air as if grasping at something just out of reach. "Only through the binding of souls can freedom be achieved." A wave of realization crashed over me. This was about connecting my fate with hers, but what would it mean for me? What could I lose? My thoughts spiraled, searching for answers amidst the chaotic energy crackling in the air. "We must act now," the guide urged, its voice rising above the rumble of the shifting earth. "The shadows seek to keep her here. The moment is fleeting." Before I could form a coherent thought, the ground quaked again, sending shards of stone tumbling from above. I felt the pressure of time closing in around me. The choice loomed: release her or turn away and leave her in despair. Then, in a flash of insight, I found myself reaching for the silver chain once more. My fingers closed around it, and as I lifted it, the world began to change again. The shadows swelled and hissed, and I felt a pull as if the space around me bent. The woman's form shimmered, flickering like a candle in a storm. "Do it," she pleaded, her eyes locking onto mine with desperate clarity. In that heartbeat, I realized the truth. To mend the cycle, I had to link my fate with hers. I had to embrace the unknown. "I choose hope," I said aloud, clarity cutting through my fear. I stepped forward, ready to bind the chain with our destinies, but just as I did, a shadow lunged at me from the darkness. Then everything went dark. My senses returned all at once. I gasped, cold air filling my lungs. I was no longer in the chamber. Instead, I found myself in a narrow, dimly lit tunnel, the walls damp and slick with moisture. A faint, pulsing light glimmered ahead, mocking me with its distance. I pushed myself up, shaking off the remnants of confusion. "What just happened?" I murmured, unsure if I was still dreaming. I glanced around, heart hammering. The shadows were gone, but the feeling of being watched persisted, sending chills down my spine. The silver chain lay coiled in my palm, radiant with energy, as though it pulsed in response to my heartbeat. I could still hear the woman's voice echoing in my mind, her plea to be freed. But now, I was alone in this cold, unfamiliar place. With a deep breath, I started to walk toward the light. Each step felt heavy, my mind racing with uncertainty. I couldn't shake the feeling that my decision had consequences I didn't fully understand. What had I committed to by choosing hope? Just then I heard soft whispers reverberate off the tunnel walls. I froze, straining to catch the words. They sounded like fragments of conversations. Some were pleading, others angry. It was as if the very air was saturated with the burdens of lost souls. "Help me," one voice whispered. "Turn back," another warned. I pressed on, driven by a mixture of fear and determination. The light grew nearer, illuminating the tunnel and revealing symbols carved into the walls. They were familiar, yet distorted, spirals and jagged lines that seemed to shift beneath my gaze. I traced them gingerly with my fingers, feeling a tingle at the tips. Suddenly the whispers intensified, swirling around me like a storm. I stumbled backward, panic rising in my chest. "Stop it!" I shouted, my voice cracking. Then out of the shadows a figure emerged, a tall silhouette with an unsettling smile. "You've made a choice," it hissed, voice smooth yet cruel. The figure stepped closer, light glinting off its eyes. But freedom isn't easily won. You've awakened something. My breath hitched. Who are you? I demanded, trying to mask the fear creeping into my voice. It's not who I am that matters, the figure replied, tilting its head as if contemplating a fragile truth. It's what you're willing to sacrifice to find her. To bind your souls, you must face what you've just awakened. A wave of dread washed over me. I could feel the shadows stirring, flickering in and out of view as if they were waiting, hungry for my response. I was trapped between two realms, neither of which felt safe. I won't let fear stop me, I declared firmly, though I wasn't sure what I truly meant. But the figure only laughed, a low, sinister sound that echoed throughout the tunnel. Then prepare for the cost of your hope. As I braced myself, I felt the chain grow warmer, almost burning against my skin. In that moment, I understood that whatever I had chosen, the real challenge was just beginning. And that's when I saw it, a glimpse of the woman, or what remained of her, trapped in the shifting shadows. My heart pounded in my chest as her eyes met mine, filled with an inexplicable longing. I knew I had to act, and fast. I surged forward, heart racing, clenching the silver chain tightly in my palm. Shadows danced menacingly around me, whispering warnings and pleas that blurred into an unintelligible chorus. I couldn't allow fear to root me in place. This was my chance, the only chance to break the cycle. With each step, I waded deeper into that unsettling tapestry of shadows and light, propelled by the desperate flicker of hope I clung to. The woman's figure shimmered again, more substantial this time. As I neared, I felt a connection tugging at my core, pulling me toward her. Reach for me, she urged, her voice a balm amidst the chaos. But to set me free, you must let go. What do you mean? I gasped, uncertainty biting at my resolve. The figure looming behind me laughed, a chilling reminder that danger lurked in every corner. The shadows flickered, beckoning me to hesitate. Sacrifice your heart's chains, the woman continued, urgency lacing her words. Only then will the cycle mend and the lost find peace. The weight of her request thudded in my chest. I thought of my life beyond this cave, friends, family, the world full of sunshine and uncertainty that I was about to leave behind. I desperately clutched the silver chain. Breaking a bond felt impossible, fraught with consequences I couldn't begin to fathom. Do it, the looming figure commanded, its eyes glinting with wicked amusement. And discover what you truly value. I hesitated, a torrent of emotions crashing over me. But in that moment I felt the depth of her pain, a sorrow that eclipsed my own fears. The pull of duty grew stronger. I'll do it, I said, voice steadying with resolve. I couldn't let her remain trapped in this darkness. With a deep breath, I drew the chain closer to my heart. I was ready to release the very thing that tied me to my life above. The things I held so dear. In this cavern, I was awash with the weight of consequences, facing the unknown head-on. As I unfurled the chain, my emotions cascaded. Fear, grief, courage, hope. It all merged into a single moment of clarity. I whispered, I choose to let go, and released the necklace, watching it fall into the void below. The moment it touched the ground, something extraordinary happened. A fissure erupted in the fabric of the shadows, and light burst forth, brilliant and blinding. Symbols on the walls glowed in response, vibrating with ancient energy. Crushing winds whipped around me as the shadows twisted violently. I felt the darkness trying to pull me back, determined to claim me. But the light pulsed with intensity, wrapping itself around the woman's figure, lifting her silhouette from the dark depths. She reached out, a serene smile breaking through the veil of despair. Thank you, she breathed as the shadows faltered, struggling to retain their hold. But then, a flicker of doubt seized me. What had I truly sacrificed? Would I simply become another echo trapped in this cavern, or would I emerge into the light? The shadows roared in anger, their whispers turning to cries of anguish. You cannot escape what you have awakened. What if I must face it? I called out, determination coursing through me. What if I choose to confront the darkness? In that moment, something shifted. The figure behind me faltered, confusion glinting in its eyes. The light intensified, merging with the shadows. "You hold the power," the woman said firmly, her ethereal form glowing brighter, empowering me. "Choose your path wisely." The shaking walls began to tremble even more violently as the shadows blurred and converged, an unrelenting tempest of despair and chaos. I clutched my hands into fists, no longer a victim of fear, but a conduit of hope. "Let go of the chains of misery," I shouted, my voice echoing against the walls. The very air quaked as I felt the darkness shift, distracted by my bold proclamation. Suddenly the shadows receded, overwhelmed by the light from the broken chain on the ground. It flowed like a river, weaving through the air, binding the shadows with the radiant glow of the woman's essence. As the darkness evaporated, I caught a glimpse of the labyrinth of the cave shifting, reshaping itself into a more forgiving path. The whispers softened, their notes a harmonizing lull that surged through the air. With the shadows dissipating, the woman began to fade, her form becoming one with the light. "Thank you for freeing me, but remember, this choice is yours," she said, her voice both comforting and haunting, and then she was gone, leaving a silence so profound I could hear my own heartbeat. I stood there, enveloped in this new, warm energy, aware of a profound transformation that coursed through the remnants of the cave. I took a deep breath, allowing the silence to cradle me. Questions flooded my mind. Would I remember her? Did I truly escape, or had I merely masked the darkness lurking within? With a determined step forward, I moved through the cave, feeling the walls pulse gently beside me as though they were alive, perhaps even welcoming this new light into their depths. I didn't know if I would ever fully understand what had transpired, or if the shadows would return to claim me one day. All I knew was that I was alive, that this experience had forever altered my perception of hope and loss. With one last glance at the dark abyss behind me, I found my way back to the cave entrance. As sunlight spilled and embraced me, I felt a strange mix of longing and closure. The world lay vast and waiting outside, and amid my uncertainty, there was also promise. I took a step into the light, embracing whatever awaited me next, unknown, but alive.